For if one is remembered by a friend, one is never truly gone.
We would be honored if you would join us.
What's going on, people? Happy Monday. That's right, Monday, not Tuesday. And we're here with the Legacy of Star Wars. Good 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time here in Ontario, Canada. And we're going to be talking the sequel trilogy today, everybody's favorite Star Wars topic. I'm sure it'll go swimmingly well, and everybody will be on the same page, and there won't be any civil war or anything like that. We're also going to talk Bad Batch. There's a new episode of that. I'm really curious to hear how not only Randy felt about the episode, but Tommy and I talked a little bit about it. There's good and bad in my opinion, but we'll dive into that as we go here. And we're going to talk a little bit about The Rise of Skywalker, the greatest Star Wars movie ever made. Clearly not. But we're going to talk about how they're doing that prequel trilogy thing where they're going to keep adapting the content to fit the movies that are out to try to make them more palpable, I guess you could say, pun intended. I think we've seen a little bit of that with Shadows of the Sith, the novel. Highly recommend to everybody out there. It's a must-have if you're a fan of any of the newer Star Wars content. Without further ado, though, he's co-host here at the Legacy of Star Wars. It's Mr. Randy. What's going on, bro?
Not a whole lot. Just, it's just, crazy that we're doing this on a Monday, but, it is what it is. We got to get it in somehow. And, I'm ready to talk definitely about Bad Batch and what we saw and kind of how it leads into our Rise of Skywalker discussion.
Also joining us, he's been the man behind the curtain here for a long time. He's not the Wizard of Oz. Maybe he's the Wizard of Tom. It's Tommy B. What's going on, man?
I mean, nothing says Monday more than Star Wars sequel trilogy, right? So here we are.
Ouch.
Man, that's what. Well, I mean, this coming from the man who is like, no one would miss them. They were clones.
Right. He did have that line. Oh,
I mean, I stand by that line because
in
the context that I said it in, gotta cherry pick our verses here. In the context I said it in, it makes perfect sense.
Okay. So let's dive into this Bad Batch new.
Are you
episode.
wearing a pink hoodie?
I am.
That's totally like out of your typical look.
I make exceptions for Bret Hart.
Okay.
Anyway, so we have a new Bad Batch episode, which featured a certain character that I think most people thought were dead or was dead. Randy, maybe walk us through your experience with this newest Bad Batch episode and what you thought about the return of one Asajj Ventress. And if you're on board for it...
Spoilers, man! Gosh! Holy hell!
It's been a week. Spoiler alert. 1 minute late.
So I kind of figured Fennec's contact at the end of that one episode was going to be Asajj Ventress. So it wasn't a shock when she showed up. Obviously, we get to see her updated, I guess, Force user look, because she's obviously not a Jedi. She's not a Sith. So, but yeah, it was interesting because we get to see her try to at least ascertain what type of Force potential that Omega has, because as we all know, she has the highest M count of any clone. So And of course, she mentioned the dreaded word that if Johnny heard it, obviously he'd be rolling over right now. He'd just be like saying, "Screw this, I'm done," because she said midichlorians. And yeah, it was. Wasn't an overall bad episode. I felt like it was slow at times, but also I was a little disappointed in the fact that it just felt like a little bit of a retread to some degree, and I know we'll talk about that later. Retread in the sense of trying to take a character and be like, let's see if we can pull any force abilities, force powers out of them, which we've obviously already seen previously in Ahsoka. So, I mean, overall, definitely not the best episode, but I didn't hate it. It's just I was a little disappointed in kind of some of the use of Asajj and just the overall kind of story arc they were using in this particular episode.
Tommy, how about you, man? Where do you stand with the episode as a whole and usage of Asajj?
I stand Ventress. Nah, when we're thinking about how I feel about the episode as a whole, I'm kind of like in the middle of the road. It was nice seeing Ventress again. Little peeved that we got no idea where the answers are going to come from, or when they're going to come, or if we're going to get them. Because we had this whole thing get amped up, and like, oh, is that it? Is that it? As for Omega, M count, potential force abilities, I think this is where Randy and I may differ a little bit. I'm going to go on out of a limb here and revisit when we talked about Ahsoka, and that I was pretty positive about Sabine getting brought into the Force user fold. I stand by that. I wasn't like pitch perfect on it. There were no problems. I think that we talk about spinning things a certain way from the past to keep in mind with what they want to do with the current canon. And I think that had to be definitely done a bit here and there. But I don't think it's the same situation for Omega. I think that they likely had a very good idea what they were doing with Omega from the very beginning. I think that we always knew things were going to be different with Omega in some way, shape, or form. We just didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. Omega has the ability to use the Force. They've had the fan theories and theories that Omega could somehow magically use the Force in some way, shape, or form as a theory, probably since season 1. So I think that's a little different from, what happened with Sabine. And of course, as things stand, it don't look like she's going to even be able to do anything. Like she's not going to get training. And I think that's perfectly fine. She don't need training. She's already the only, female clone. She don't need to be able to also swing around a lightsaber and choke people and stuff like that, right? We're good. We're good with her just as Omega, the clone child, unaltered, but also, a girl who apparently has a high M count. Also, why the hell did the whole M count thing come from? Why can't we just call them midichlorians? Like, I get that it makes Johnny's skin crawl, but
that's why it's all Johnny's fault. No, it's a trigger word, right? Like, people, they have this hypersensitive online policy over at Lucasfilm and Disney, and they know that midichlorians triggers people that don't like the prequels, and just the way
they get over it.
Yeah, they didn't want to. They wanted to blow up Coruscant just for the sake of blowing it up. Like, come on. Yeah, the hate was real there. They get on the fandom, but I got to tell you, a lot of the hate comes right from in-house at times, and Not to add more toxicity to this, but like I have been on board with almost every decision this show has made this season. It did not revive it to a point where I'm like, oh my God, gotta go back and see what I missed. I feel like they've done a decent enough job catching me up where it's like, okay, well, I feel a part of this now and I'm enjoying what's coming. But the usage of Asajj Ventress basically spit in the face of everything that they've been doing with the show. Yes, we had Rex and other characters pop up in this show. We had the Emperor, but I mean, you're talking about M count. There should be no one more prominent than him in terms of popping up in regards to that, because they're trying to figure out a way to prolong his life. But I found it, what was it the K2SO said? Not this first part, but lazy and unconvincing. And that's what I thought of Ventress in this episode. Now, maybe there's a payoff and we get the answers about how she's even alive in an episode of Bad Batch, pardon me. And that's where it should be. That's where you've chosen to pop her back up. So the reveal of how she's still alive should not come in another median. It shouldn't be go play this video game, go read this book, go read this one-shot chapter in Star Wars Insider. It shouldn't be anything like that. And it just screams
Don't tell me read another book for this.
It screams lazy, man. If that's the route they go, I hope they reveal it on Bad Batch. That is where it needs to be revealed at this point. But if it's not, it's lazy.
So what you just said, Sean, I think, and I don't know why it took until now for me to realize this, but honestly, unless you're a fan who does do the books, because not everybody is, what's stopping someone from just rolling on into this from the last season of Clone Wars?
Well, nothing at this point when you set that precedent.
They're not going to know the difference. I don't know what that perspective is like. I don't have that perspective, but I'm sure there are some people who do. And they may find out in the aftermath, joke there, that it's like, oh yeah, she's actually dead, but then alive. So
let me put your fears to rest. The voice actress for Asajj Ventress has gone on record saying we will find out this season how she survived.
She has said that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I'm sure I could dig it up in about a minute. A screenshot from the official Star Wars Twitter or Facebook saying that it will be revealed in another medium.
If it's revealed, well, if now you got one thing saying one thing and the one doesn't, maybe StarWars.com or whatever social media page it was, maybe that's how they truly intended, but she made it sound like that we're going to find out during an episode of the Bad Batch. So, and maybe she said something she shouldn't have, because we've all known people that'll sit there and spill the beans and be like, oh wait, I wasn't supposed to say that. Whoops. So
the terminology was future content. Is the voice actor Jennifer Corbett?
I'm not sure. I don't have that in front of me.
If it is, that's the same person.
Okay. Well, then maybe I misremembered what I read online then. So
well, I hope it is Bad Batch. If it's Bad Batch, I got no qualms. Great. But if it's not, you've just reintroduced a character who was previously dead. You're not supposed to spit in the face of the people that follow this closely and are investing in playing your video games or buying your books or comics or whatever. Those are the people that are supposed to get rewarded for investing their time and their money into the product. And honestly, they still can't figure out what the fuck they're doing at this company. Like, not to come on here and be fucking super negative, but all you need to hear, and like Ian and I brought it up the other day when we were on here, and it was like their take from what went wrong with Solo is we can never recast popular Star Wars characters again. That's their recent take. That is something that Kathleen Kennedy has said within the last month. I don't understand how you can be so incredibly fucking ignorant to think that that's the issue. That was not the issue. It was never the issue. Stop putting the performers above the characters, because the second you do that, you shrink the value of the character. Sorry, but like it all tracks back to that, and it's frustrating. It pisses me off, actually, guys. I can sit there and go through a House of the Dragon rewatch with my spouse and fucking be blown away by the cinematography, the sound design, the score, the acting, the drama in scenes, how compelling it is. Those are things that Star Wars is supposed to be, that has, like, they built their name on it. Say what you want about Star Wars, but the original trilogy was like pioneering the industry. Even the prequel trilogy, to an extent. You might not like those movies. They did the same thing. The usage of green screen and blue screen done in a way that had never been seen before. And, you know, you can nitpick something like the Phantom Menace all you want. People still left the Phantom Menace saying, oh my God, the pod race. Oh my God, the lightsaber duel. We're not getting those oh my God moments from Star Wars products that aren't named Andor. And there's got to be a change somewhere. I hope I'm wrong. And I hope that it is Ventress in the season finale, and we find out that, you know, maybe that's maybe they're setting up for her to go off with Ventress. Maybe she has to go off with Ventress at the end, and everybody else dies or something. I have no idea. I've read no spoilers. Please don't assume that. You know, I'm open to there being payoff, but I'm just so sick of the lazy answer coming from this company. I mean, guys, we're talking about the same company at the end of the day that went like this to the Battlefront Classic Collection re-release. They still need to be the ones that goes like this, and they're the ones that went, yeah, you know, maybe no one will knows.
Yeah, it's definitely a bummer that that they take the easy way out, that they give us vague enough answers to questions that, you know, we just have to sit there and be like, what are we going to do? This is the answer. We're going to sit here and wait and see what happens. And it's such BS that, you know, smart fans are going to be like, 2 sentences right here, where everything right in this little episode of whatever, and you're done. That's all you have to do. You don't have to sit there and make us wait months, years for another different property to come out and be like, oh, here's the answer to the question you asked from a year ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago. It's, you know, I get it. You're trying to milk it. You're trying to put out more content to the point of where people go out and have to buy it and absorb it. And you know, does it suck? Yes, very much so. It's a shitty business practice the way I look at it, because sometimes the fans deserve more. And this is one of those cases, especially for Clone Wars fans, where they deserved more out of Asajj Ventress in this episode. They deserved more of an explanation of where she's been, what she's doing, other than the fact that we know she's been a bounty hunter for the most part. It's frustrating. And I get it. You know, it's part of the whole, you know, instant gratification culture that we have. But you know what? As a lifelong Star Wars fan from the very beginning, you know, I feel like I've at least earned, you know, the right to at least have something given to me a little sooner rather than later. But that's me. That's my opinion on that. Obviously, as we know, like with the Phantom Menace and the prequel trilogy, for a lot of people, that's their first Star Wars. And you would think that being their first Star Wars and going into Clone Wars, that they would be just as much as salivating for this type of answer as we are. And it's frustrating. It just sucks.
Yeah, again, like, I hope I'm blown away by it. I've been blown away by this season. Like, if the show would have been this the entire time, similar tone, similar stakes, I probably would have been more on board with it. But again, I'm just talking like from the company as a whole. Like, eventually, you can only get wrong so many times. Someone can only, you know, bite your hand, slap your hand so many times before you go, you know, is it really their fault if I keep putting my hand back out there to be slapped? And, you know, it is what it is. But I'm positive on things too, though, fellas. Like Phantom Menace, right around the corner. I'm as excited for that as I would be to go see any new movie coming out. Maybe not new Star Wars movie, but new just movie theater release. So really excited for that. Excited to see some of the Acolyte stuff. Don't really pay attention to the hate the Acolyte shit gets because it's not based around the content at all. It's based around people that can't accept that it's 2024 and people have choices they can make in their lives. But other than that, like it's really, I guess those are the two highlights this year, right? I mean, Dark Forces on a smaller scale. I haven't got to play too much of it, but every time I talk to someone about it, it's like, oh, I heard it was great. Oh, I heard it was great. It's like, so it's nice to see and hear about the success that Dark Forces has delivered in comparison to the Battlefront Classic Collection. So it's not all negative. There's definitely some positive there. Let me flip the question here on you guys because I believe there's 9 episodes left of this. Is that right? 9 episodes. I think we're single digits in how many episodes are left. I could be wrong on that.
Step back for a minute. You just said Dark Forces. I remember looking it up a while back. I just Googled it and it dropped and I didn't even hear about it.
It's been received really well, man.
It came out in February. I didn't hear anybody talk about it. Now, Grant, this is a game that's in its upteenth release.
Yeah, no, they did a really, really good job with it. People are impressed.
It looks really clean. It plays really smooth. It's they tweaked the controls a little bit. The sound's better. Overall, it's been a lot of fun. I forgot how
a lot better than the Battlefront.
I forgot how stressful some of the battles are that you can get into in this game. That's how much fun I'm having.
That's amazing. That's great. Yeah, if you have the money to spend on it right now, you definitely spend it on Dark
Forces.
$30.
It's been worth it. I'm sorry. I feel like that's
Dark Forces, $30
for a complete 4K remastered. Everything's smoothed out. The animation is slicker. The voice acting, the voice acting is the same, but like everything's cleaner.
I think they restored it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they put some money into that one.
The controls have been tweaked so you can actually use the analog sticks, unlike the original PlayStation 1 release where you couldn't use the analog sticks for it.
I could only imagine. It was terrible playing it on a keyboard.
So like I said, it's definitely, if you're looking for that nostalgic feel and this is something you played, definitely pick this up over the Battlefront collection, because there's so much patching that game needs that it's going to be a while, I think, before Battlefront collection's even playable where it needs to be, where what they promised us.
Let's take this the Rise of Skywalker route for a second here before we longer than a second, but probably be one of the last things we talk about. Randy, you wanted some points you wanted to make in terms of, or you had some points you wanted to make in terms of the Rise of Skywalker and some of the content that has come out since then to try to boost that a bit.
It seems like everything that deals with, I would say, more or less the Skywalker saga, or has ties to the Skywalker saga in some way, shape, or form, seems to be they're putting little things in, whether it's the Mandalorian, whether it's Ahsoka, whether it's Bad Batch. They're putting things in, trying to sit there and keep telling people, look, Rise of Skywalker wasn't as bad. See, Palpatine was planning to survive all the time. Even in Battlefront 2, the remake, they hinted at Palpatine having a plan. They're trying everything they can to make it feel like everything that happened in Rise of Skywalker was plausible. That it wasn't just and somehow Palpatine returned. I mean, it wasn't anything like that. It was actually them planting the seeds in all these shows that they're coming out that are at least based off of anything that's happened in the Clone Wars era or post Return of the Jedi, pre, sequel trilogy. They're really trying hard to make you take these little puzzle pieces and put it all together, that we have one big giant picture, versus what we got with The Rise of Skywalker is there he is. We have no clue how he survived, but there he is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that was the most upsetting for me is, I have a thing that I refer to as recency bias. I think whenever you see a movie for the first time in cinemas, especially if it's over opening weekend and you've gone through a year or two or three or four of hype, and I do think your emotions can cloud your judgment. I do think you need to rewatch it a couple of times before you really know how you feel. I still regret the way I responded to not just The Last Jedi, but Rogue Squadron or Rogue One, but focusing on the sequels specifically. There's a lot of good in The Last Jedi. Like, take that movie and put it side by side the other two movies in that trilogy, and it's shot way better than the other two movies. The cinematography is way better. The sound design is way better. The editing is better, and it's different teams working on these movies. And so, but again, story and characters reign supreme. So the way you treats, certain story aspects, certain characters will always be what gets paid attention to most. No one talks about Halloween Ends, and the fact that, from a production standpoint, it might be the best Halloween movie ever made, between cinematography, sound design, and editing and acting. It's incredible. No, people talk about the misusage of Michael Myers and how they handled that character. And for a lot of people with Star Wars, that's what they talked about with The Last Jedi. They talked about Luke Skywalker and how he was handled. And, people were already pissed we didn't get a reunion. Specifically, I think it was the him and Han reunion everybody wanted the most, more so than the three of them. And we didn't get it, right? And yet, as Tommy and I have talked about time after time on this channel, when going back to the Last Jedi, I can pick 4 or 5 moments out of that movie that are just like, as a whole, I still struggle to like this movie. I think it's too long. I think that the tone of the Canto Bite stuff is ridiculous. And yet there are parts in this movie that I think have a legacy more so than what we see in a lot of other Star Wars movies. Like the Luke Skywalker flicking the shoulder after he takes all the blasts because he's not actually there. Like, it's a badass moment. It's amazing. The Luke and Rey fighting in the rain is amazing. The Luke and Yoda scene's great. Adam Driver is amazing in all of his scenes. So the sequel trilogy does offer good. But the biggest mistake I made is being too critical of The Last Jedi when it came out, and not, allowing myself to have time to sit on it, think on it. And obviously, like, a lot of time, not a couple of years, like several years to sit on it. But The Rise of Skywalker, guys, I don't have regrets there. I think it's the most lazy, disgusting Star Wars movie ever made, that was all about hitting a release date. And the worst part is you strapped the Rise of Skywalker title on it, and you could have had this big, pardon the lack of a better term, but like religious moment of where you could have actually had the Chosen One come back with the title like that, and given some of the other Force things we've seen, and you essentially just say, well, she adopted the name. it's a bad movie, and no matter how good books like Shadows of the Sith are, I think there's only so much you can do to boost, dog shit. You can make chicken salad out of chicken shit only so many times. Eventually, there's just chicken shit left. Sorry, that's how I feel. Apologize for the tangent. Randy, how about you?
No, I mean, looking back, if I'm going to look back at the sequel trilogy in general, Force Awakens hits that nostalgia button, and it did it well. The Last Jedi, I agree with you. It's beautifully shot. It really is a overall good story, and there's a lot of memorable moments in it that are just really cool. And I feel like it's a great movie I mean, and I've said it before. It's a great movie, but it's not a great Star Wars movie. It's just, but overall, I mean, it was really well done. I mean, obviously, I wasn't happy with what happened with Luke, but that is the direction they went, so I learned to accept it. Obviously, like you said, there are these moments in that movie that are really cool, and you haven't really experienced them before. I mean, the Holdo maneuver. Think about that. Think about like that whole, jumping into hyperspace into, a fleet of ships, and like that deafening silence, and then the explosion. Like that was absolutely badass. That was a really cool scene. I love the use of the sound in that, and just the overall direction they took with it. I thought that was really cool what they did. But then you get to something like, you get to the Rise of Skywalker, and I get it. It's damage control, right? They were trying to be like, well, this got so much backlash. We got to try to retcon this. We got to try to bring all this together. We got to give them their ultimate villain. And there's too many storylines and not enough time to develop it. Not enough time to develop the characters the way they needed to show their growth over the years. And just some real quick, hey, let's just throw this against the wall and see if it sticks. The whole thing with Palpatine in general coming back, that was one of those ones and they've been trying to correct it for years in other shows to just kind of, give validation to the fact of why they brought Palpatine back in the first place. I mean, what's next? They're going to sit there and be like, well, you see, Palpatine went into the world between worlds and had a talk with him as a younger self and said, you should make your clone of yourself. I mean, what, are we going to go that direction next? Because we know he has access to it because we saw it in Rebels. So I don't know. At this point, we know what Palpatine did to come back. Let's just stop trying to add the pieces, unless you're going to just dedicate a book or something to it, a whole book where he just goes through the process, because it's getting kind of ridiculous.
I'll go one step further before Tommy chimes in here. You don't need just a whole book. You need like an Andor-like super detailed series that gets into the science of what they're doing with the M count, who's working on it, the inner fighting that's happening with everything going on. I think there's definitely a very inside Star Wars show you could make for that. And if you don't want to spend the outrageous amounts of money it would be to make that show, I think you need a book series with how convoluted this thing has gotten at this point.
I can see that.
Tommy, what about you? Anything they can do to make the Rise of Skywalker more palpable for you?
I've said in the past, I've said on here recently, the Rise of Skywalker, for what it is, has some beautiful scenes. Some of my favorite scenes from throughout the live action films, franchise, so on and so forth. The storyline itself is never going to fit with the other films. I feel like if any particular movie of the episodic films feels like it sticks out the most, I'm sorry, did you say The Rise of Skywalker? I think I just had a brain blip. The Rise of Skywalker. I'm talking about The Last Jedi.
I was going to say, I'm like, I can't think of these scenes you're talking about.
Shit.
Welcome
wow,
to Monday.
That's embarrassing. Okay. So here's the thing about The Rise of Skywalker. I've probably seen the whole movie start to finish, I think twice. I don't think once. I think I got through it a second time. I don't remember when, though. Don't quote me on that. Yes, it's awful. They did a lot of very, very stupid things. And they could have made parts of it not as bad by properly introducing the story elements before the film. Having said that, they didn't. They thought the way they went about it was a good idea. Do I feel that The Rise of Skywalker could become more cohesive as they attempt to retcon, paddle up the river, and fix things? Sure. Sure, I think that there's a chance they could do that. I don't think for you, the three of us here, it's ever going to have the same power as it should have. But for fans who come later, go and introduce these plot elements and find out at about the same time what's going on, it might be a more powerful introduction or something to implement to make things work. For us, it's going to always be weird. Now, I'm going to go back ahead since we're talking general sequels, and I'm going to say what I was talking about. I'm just going to go fix myself. Last Jedi had some of my favorite scenes from the franchise. The Last Jedi had some very great things. The Last Jedi, I could rip on that film all day because the plot is just terrible. It doesn't work. But The Last Jedi did have some very, very interesting scenes that just stand out. And I think that is a testament to the crew and the creator who, everyone who was behind the scenes. With all that said, that plot is never going to fit with the episodic films. It is never going to work. You can't force that in between two other films, which do not even work very well together. Force Awakens was great. Force Awakens was great.
Oh, come on. The budding relationship between Rose and Finn didn't work for you in The Last Jedi? Come on.
Yeah.
I didn't really mind them. That's not my problem with the movie.
Canto Bite, can we just say that even though it looked great, it just wasn't needed?
Yep. Wasn't needed.
The whole,
I think that's a good descriptor. Wasn't needed.
I don't get going that route with your movie, going to a place like that, and then coming out with this like dry comedic tone the entire time you're there. It just didn't fit at all. It could have been this Mission Impossible style mission, and it just felt like it had Disney-fied all over it. And it's unfortunate because I think the set pieces for Canto Bite are fantastic. I think you could have told a very compelling story there. Instead, they told what they told. And I get it that it sounds like we're just shitting on everything, but hey, anybody listening to this or watching this, this will never be a podcast looking to hit a checklist of we got to like this, and not like that, and that. We come on here, we speak our mind. I'm excited for The Acolyte. I'm hoping that I'm going to be over the moon about that, super positive about it. There are things to be positive right now with Star Wars, but if you're holding them being Lucasfilm accountable, there's still some really bad, stupid shit happening that makes you worry about what comes next.
I just got done saying about all the scenes. I didn't say the specific scenes, but the scenes that I did enjoy in The Last Jedi. They had some really interesting fight scenes and some really interesting dynamics going on there. That's, we can hate on that movie all we want. Every once in a while, I break out a Last Jedi t-shirt I have just to tease Sean a little bit about it. But,
the marketing for The Last Jedi was great. I don't think it lined up with what we've seen on screen, but the marketing was fantastic. They built up hype. It's not like people weren't excited to go see the movie opening day, but those of us that knew that the lightsaber was getting tossed over the shoulder before going to see it was like, that's deflating no matter how you cut it, because, for a lot of people, that's not how Luke Skywalker should have been. But it's not our story to...
Yeah. That's not my Luke Skywalker.
Oh, sorry you feel that way, Eric. But yeah, no, at the end of the day, when you go and do a trilogy of movies, a TV series, a series of movies, you have to have an understanding of where your story is going to properly structure things. And guess what? They didn't. They've admitted that. People went to bat for years claiming they did, and they themselves came out and have admitted time and time again there was no set plan. And I hope they've learned from their mistakes, because I don't think you can have the reception of the sequel trilogy happen again as these new movies come out. It needs to be better than that.
Well, we'll just have to wait to see, what Filoni comes up with in terms of, what he allows, what he doesn't allow, and hopefully, when we finally get his movie, when we finally get to see Mandalorian and Grogu, please someone change the name, please. Begging here, because Mandalorian and Grogu just doesn't work. I don't care what if all the memes are saying it's the Grogu show. I don't care. We need a different name. We need something that's going to actually bring the, even non-fans. Let's find something that would actually make potentially interest them too, not just Mandalorian and Grogu. Well, maybe we'll get that changed. And then of course, we get the re-release of the Phantom Menace coming up, and they're adding back that scene apparently that we never got to see between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon that they cut from the original release. So that's going to be interesting. And obviously our first true glimpse at the Acolyte. I mean, to me, that's going to be worth it by itself.
I haven't heard about a scene being added, but I did hear about them using the extended pod race scene. So.
What is the first look? Do we know about that? Are we talking like a 30-second little thing?
I think it's supposed to be like 13 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be longer. You're going to be getting a chunk of an episode.
Oh.
And the scene that's being added back in is literally just as they arrive at the palace.
Oh, is this in the water?
Yeah, where they cut that scene off from. They're going to add that back in.
Where Jar Jar jumps out of the boat all stupid and they're just kind of looking at him. Yeah, I've seen that scene. Right. I'm looking forward to the movie. I can't wait for it. Any final thoughts here? Any Star Wars thoughts whatsoever, guys, as we get ready to close out the show?
I'm just kind of, you know what? As much as I was not 100% over the moon about the last episode of The Bad Batch, I've enjoyed this third and final season. I think it's had a really good, the tone's been pretty well kept where it needs to be. Obviously, we've had a few moments here and there, but honestly, they've done such a great job with Hemlock. I hope he gets blasted to bits, because that dude pisses me off every time I see him on screen. His attitude, his arrogance. But that's the sign of a good villain too. You want to see them get their ass kicked. So
they legitimately made him unlikable.
That dude, kudos to them for the way they wrote that character, because God, I hate that asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to bet one way or another is you probably have more unlikable stuff coming from that character. So especially if they want to use him more, even though they've announced the Bad Batch is ending after season 3, doesn't mean certain stories can't continue in different on different platforms, as we discussed early on. I'm excited. The Bad Batch season 3 has been, the tone's been right. I feel like there's stakes. I feel like what's going on is important. And I think, that's positive momentum. So anything positive we can get, definitely send my way, and keep it coming. What about you, Tommy?
We are only a bit shy of 5 weeks until May the 4th.
Yep.
Any special plans rolling around our minds?
It depends. So they've announced that all the Star Wars movies are going to be in theaters May the 4th. However, I don't know.
That's a lot of movies. Are we sure that they're going to deliver on that? Sure that wasn't an April Fool's Day thing?
No, that's legit. That's straight from Star Wars. What I don't know, though, is if, you're just buying a ticket to a marathon, or if you're going to be able to go see individual releases. My gut says it's going to be a marathon for those that want to do the 24-hour thing.
More than likely.
Which is not for me. Sorry.
I think they've done that before.
You too old for that, Sean?
That, my health, etc. It wouldn't be a fun time.
However,
if they end up letting you go see select ones, it's our intention to also see Revenge of the Sith. on May the 4th. So we'll see. Hopeful.
Man, you gotta go see all the prequels. Get
Look,
Johnny to go with you.
I see Attack of the Clones 6 times in theaters. I think they got enough of my money.
Johnny will have a good time with you.
We got
Probably the first time he saw the prequels in theaters.
Anywho, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, set notifications to all to keep up to date with all the future content we have coming at the channel. Patreon.com. There's not enough tea in China for me to agree to see both episodes 1 and 2. I mean, if I'm the one saying that I'm not gonna do it, it's probably pretty telling. Like, comment, subscribe, notifications to all people. That helps out a ton. Patreon.com/Fandom Empire. We're doing a giveaway on the channel of a Rob Zombie Halloween 2 mask. Basically, all you got to do is head on over to the Legacy of Halloween or the Legacy of Westeros, subscribe to one of those 2 channels, and leave a comment. And if you did so after March the 1st, you are automatically qualified in an opportunity to win that mask, which will be made on air here. Also, we are in the final 4 of our Halloween March Madness tournament. It is Halloween 2018 taking on Halloween 2, and Halloween 4 taking on Halloween H2O to see who goes to the finals, and then eventually take on the original in a legacy matchup. Pay attention to Facebook and X for the polls to go out. And then tomorrow night, we have a watch-along. That's right, Halloween H2O watch party. Mike Bish will be joining us for that. Myself, Dean, and Mike are going to sit down and count how many ridiculous, amounts of times they switch the mask for no good reason in this movie. It's a lot. We're not going to make a drinking game out of it. Someone will definitely get alcohol poisoning. Anyways, for Tommy and Randy, I'm Sean. We'll see you next time on the Legacy of Star Wars. And shout out to Johnny. See you soon, dude. Phantom Menace. We know you can't wait.
For if one is remembered by a friend, one is never truly gone.
We would be honored if you would join us.